State of Oklahoma to deport detained immigrants illegally in the U.S. If you're in Oklahoma and you're not here legally, things may not go your direction. Meanwhile, blue states like California and Illinois, they're trying to figure out how can we protect the illegal criminals that have just been coming over the border in droves. That's literally the difference you've got going on between red states and blue states. Protect our people? I don't know what the blue states are doing, but it ain't protecting their people. Let's get into it. Here we go.
Numbers on deportations in this country, they have surged to a 10-year high. According to ICE's report from fiscal year 2024, more than 271,000 people were deported over 12 months. That surpasses numbers recorded during the Trump administration. And this increase marks the highest number of deportations actually since 2014, when the Obama administration deported more than 316,000 people. The spike in deportations highlights a significant shift in policy as the Biden administration wraps up its final year in office. And these new numbers come ahead of Trump's second term. He has vowed to begin mass deportation efforts, and one state is already eager to help. Oklahoma, where officials are preparing their state's own deportation plans, and they start in prison. News Nation correspondent Jorge Ventura tracking this. He is live for us in Oklahoma City. Jorge.
Well, Natasha, I was able to speak with Oklahoma Governor Kevin Stitt. He says he wants his state leading the incoming Trump administration when it comes to mass deportations by creating an operation to target illegal immigrants in the state's prisons.
In the state's prisons. That's that's your key point, right? And so much of what the media is focusing on right now is, there's going to be 8 million deportations of just little Johnny from his baseball game. And, dad's going to be taken off his construction site and sent back to Guatemala. That's not what we're focusing on. We are focusing on already incarcerated individuals that, they're going to be deported once they've served their time. And then people that have been already identified as, hey, you can't be in the country either because you've committed a crime or because you don't qualify for asylum based on federal guidelines. You're a no-go. You gotta go. Those are the folks that Tom Homan has been honing in on as far as this is who we're going to focus on. Not all of these other people that the big blue states and, governors and mayors, they're just saying, well, we need to come up with a plan to protect little Johnny and Susie because they might lose their dad. Well, they might lose their dad if their dad's committed a crime or if their family just isn't eligible. Rules are rules. So, let's keep going here.
You're an illegal immigrant breaking the law. You're not only going to be held accountable, but you're going to be deported from our state and our country.
It's the first.
As it should be, right? Why should we as taxpayers be footing the bill for all these illegals that have come into the country and committed crimes? It doesn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense at all. And yet you've got to go to a hard red state. 77 out of 77 of their counties, voted red. That's as red as it gets, right? And when you go to Oklahoma, you're like, okay, this makes sense. You don't have a lot of shenanigans that Seattle does, that Portland does, that LA does, that Massachusetts does, that Chicago does. You don't have those kind of shenanigans because they've got an attitude like this, which is, hey, you commit a crime, we're going to boot you or we're going to make you serve your sentence. And then boom, out you go. Instead of this, we need to figure out how to work with the people so they don't get to. Why are you trying to protect criminals? Why are these big blue states and cities working so hard to protect criminals? That's a really good question, right?
First operation of its kind, dubbed Operation Guardian. Governor Kevin Stitt says his state will have a deportation plan ready for the second Trump administration on day one. Operation Guardian is designed to fast-track the deportation of undocumented immigrants incarcerated in the state's prisons. The goal is to transfer these individuals to ICE custody under the Trump administration. According to the governor's office, there are currently 526 immigrants who entered the U.S. illegally behind bars in Oklahoma, costing the state approximately $32,000 a day in taxpayer funds.
A day.
These people have committed crimes. They're not only in our country illegally, but they're also have committed major crimes. I want to just first make sure that we take care of that population.
The governor has...
And that's what you're going to continuously hear from Republican states. And what mainstream media will focus on is, the mass deportations. We'll take that a step further. Of who? Or is that of whom? I don't really know. But you get what I'm saying, right? Well, who are we mass deportating? I'm okay if it's criminals. You know what I'm saying? I mean, those people got to go. They got to go.
Appointed Public Safety Commissioner Tim Tipton to lead the operation and create a logistics plan for transferring those flagged for deportation to federal custody. Tipton telling News Nation that the governor will review crimes committed on a case-by-case basis.
Has justice been served, or do they need to remain incarcerated in Oklahoma to finish serving out their term because of the type of crime they committed? Then as soon as that sentence has been served, then have a systematic way to move them out of the country.
The commission...
I'm kind of torn on that part because, so what it comes down to is murderers and rapists are going to they're going to need to finish out their term in incarceration. But that means you've got Oklahoma taxpayers footing the bill for these folks in their jail system, in their prison system. So from that standpoint, I don't know. I mean, the fact that they don't have to serve a prison sentence, that's not okay. But taxpayers having to foot the bill for these people committing crimes, you know what I mean? I'm inclined to say, yep, make them finish out their term, and maybe it'll, encourage them not to come back. I don't know.
Commissioner says part of the plan includes cooperation with local law enforcement, ensuring any person in the country illegally who commits a crime is identified and transferred into ICE custody.
If you commit a crime and you're arrested and you're here illegally, a detainer's put on you and you're never let back out onto the street, ICE takes you into custody and puts you through the deportation process.
Doesn't that just seem like that should be a normal response? Doesn't that just seem like logical? This is what we should do. And yet you've got numbnuts like Let's Go Brandon Johnson in Chicago. Oh, we got to work hard. We got to come up with a plan. You've got Gruesome Newsom, Gavin Newsom in California, holding these emergency legislative sessions because he wants to virtue signal about needing to protect the illegals. And again, you're going after criminals. So why are you working so hard to protect the criminals? Interesting, right? And in Chicago, where you've spent $573 million over the last number of years supporting the illegals, why aren't you excited about getting some of the criminal element out of your communities? And why are you so hell-bent on just spending more and more money on these illegals? Good question, right? I mean, it's an interesting question.
Commissioner Tipton tells you right now he is working on those final details on the cooperation between state and local officials and the federal authorities in the incoming Trump administration when it comes to deporting illegal immigrants who have committed crimes here in Oklahoma. Governor Stitt is set to receive that final detail on Operation Guardian on January 15th. Natasha.
Yeah, we appreciate you tracking this. Jorge Ventura in Oklahoma. Thank you.
States launched Operation Guardian. Jailed persons illegal in the U.S. deported. I mean, that's just, to me, it's just so much common sense. Former convicts in Oklahoma illegally will also be handed over to ICE. They are saying that they will, unlike the sanctuary states and the sanctuary cities, they are going to turn them over. And that's what should be happening. But it hasn't, because you've got these virtue signaling numbnuts in power that are like, how could they do this? How could they take these people from their family? Well, when you've committed a crime, that's just kind of what happens, right? I don't know if you saw this, but Texas has been putting up some billboards in some of the countries where folks are, coming through Mexico, saying, your daughter's going to be raped. I mean, they're just some horrific billboards because they're trying to give that message. Hey, if you send your wife and daughter through, they're going to pay for it with their bodies. Literally, there's a good chance your daughter is going to be raped if they make this journey, which is true, which is 100% true. But then you've got, these big blue sanctuary cities that can't seem to figure out that this is actually going on. And maybe their support of, the illegals being in there, whether it's state, county, or city, maybe you're supporting some illegal immigrant criminals. And maybe that's why some American citizens are being raped and being murdered. I mean, that's just reality, right? We know that's going on. Maybe some homeless people on, maybe a homeless female they're still working to identify on the subway in New York City is set on fire by a Guatemalan illegal. Yeah, that didn't get a lot of coverage in mainstream media, did it? No. Oh, good Lord, that's not a good look for the Biden administration. Oh, yeah, it's one more nail in the coffin of Sleepy Joe's presidency. What a bad president he has been. Just the worst president ever, right? And he's going to go down in history as a placeholder between the first and second Trump administration. Who was that guy again? Oh, yeah, Sleepy Joe. Day one, they had to make adjustments to how the White House operates because Sleepy Joe was mentally debilitated to the point where he had good days, good weeks, bad weeks. And, you know, when the Secretary of Defense needs to get a hold of him during the Afghanistan withdrawal, no can do. Sleepy Joe, he's having one of those days. Figure it out on your own. Yeah, I need to talk to the president. Literally happened. I mean, tell me that makes sense. Make that make sense. California Governor Newsom's team considering ways to help illegal immigrants ahead of second Trump administration report. Now, there was a whole bunch of this absolute nonsense. The first administration of Trump, whole bunch of this nonsense. And you know what happened with that? This was all just a bunch of virtue signaling that didn't really amount to much of anything. It was just a bunch of nonsense so that gruesome Newsom could basically go to his constituents and say, I'm really trying to help these folks out. When in fact, his constituents, if they really looked at the numbers, would recognize, well, we're going after the illegal criminals here who should be out of the country. So what are you doing? What are you talking about? You know what I mean? Just it blows my mind that this is how they're positioning themselves. California Governor Gavin Newsom's reportedly considering a plan to help illegal immigrants and their families threatened by President-elect Trump's mass deportation plan. Where in any of this has Trump or Homan or anybody else indicated that they're going to go after families? Where? You're not. So why are we doing this? A draft of the plan obtained by Politico, which is a wildly left-leaning organization, titled Immigrant Support Network Concept, proposes the creation of an immigrant support network, surprisingly, comprised of regional hubs to connect at-risk individuals, their families, and communities with community systems such as legal services, schools, labor unions, local governments, etc. So you're saying that you're wanting to connect criminals with their families and communities, criminals with their communities, criminals with community systems, criminals with legal services, criminals with schools, criminals with labor unions, criminals with local governments. That's what you're saying here. That's what you're telling me. That's where we're going here. I mean, that's an interesting approach, but I probably myself wouldn't go down that road. Fox News Digital has reached out to Trump's representatives. Newsom's office told Fox News Digital that the draft was prepared by the California Department of Social Services and has not been reviewed in Sacramento, not been reviewed in the actual government. This is a bunch of nonsense. This is gruesome Newsom still continuing his woke nonsense that will get him nowhere. He is unelectable. Folks are just have to take a quick look at California. My last podcast was about the In-N-Out Burger, the only In-N-Out Burger chain store that has ever been closed in their history, and they have like 400 of them. was in Oakland, and it was making money. But they literally had a bullet go through the store. The crime statistics are so off the hook that they decided this is not worth our liability. Even though this store is making money, great location on a freeway on the 580, I think it was. Nice looking building, drive through, lots of parking. It had everything going for it. It was literally making money. But because it is in a blue Democrat-run city, namely Oakland, that just had its mayor recalled and its district attorney recalled, city attorney, I think it was, recalled. Hey, you're so terrible. Even in Oakland, we recognize you are so terrible that we're going to absolutely, you know what, can you? And that's what they did. Things got that bad. And so, this is literally where you're at. You've got good businesses leaving these areas because of criminal activity, because of nonsense like this. This is just virtue signaling nonsense because nobody's saying that they're going after families that are working hard. I mean, they've specifically said going after criminals and those that are working hard and are paying taxes and, try to do all that. We're going to make sure to work to make sure that they're able to stay in the country and we'll figure it out. So in 2024, during a rolling 12-month segment, what we watched in that first video was 271,000 people were deported. So you've got 1.4 million illegals in the country that should be deported, whether because of criminal background or because they just don't qualify for residency. They just don't qualify for asylum. They don't fit the parameters. You got 1.4 million of those folks that should be deported. And you did 271,000, which was an all-time record in the last 12 months. I mean, you're going to spend this next 4 years of the Trump presidency just getting rid of people who already shouldn't be here. We're not going after families. The numbers, I mean, just look at the logistics. It doesn't make any sense at all for, Gruesome Newsom to be doing this. This draft is a part of an effort by California leaders to prepare for a second Trump administration. After Trump was elected, Newsom called a special legislative session and talked of a $25 million Trump-proof legal defense fund. So you're going to try and Trump-proof with the legal defense fund to keep illegal criminals in your state, in your cities, in your counties? Is that what you're saying? That's what you're doing? You want to keep illegal criminals in California? All right. I'll podcast that all day long, along with JB Pritzker and Let's Go Brandon Johnson. I mean, these guys. Let's watch a quick video on this. This is a classic. We got to hear this.
Homan also had strong words for Chicago Mayor Brandon Johnson, urging the mayor to, quote,
Let's go, Brandon.
Threatening legal action. NBC5's Christian Farr has reaction.
If he impedes us, if he knowingly harbors and conceals an illegal alien, I will prosecute him.
Tom Homan directed those powerful words at Chicago's Mayor Brandon Johnson as the incoming border czar gets ready to conduct a mass deportation starting next month. For months.
And starting in Chicago. I love it. Turn Chicago red, I think is the shirt. I need one of those shirts. I need whatever that slogan is on the shirts in Chicago, the red. Those are great.
President-elect Trump has been talking about Homan's marching orders.
I want you to run the biggest deportation operation this country's ever seen. And all that.
Homan spoke those words last night during a Republican event on Chicago's northwest side and reached out to the mayor's office about Homan's prosecution comment. Besides the mass deportation, Homan has also been charged with securing the border.
Is it going to have enough personnel, enough resources?
Fred Sau is with the Illinois.
You know what? Let him worry about that. Don't, just worry about whatever ridiculous program you're doing, right? Let the border czar worry about his deportations and securing the border. I'm sure he's capable of his job. I don't know what your job is, but you know what I mean? It's just, is he capable?
A coalition for immigrants and refugee rights and questions whether this deportation plan can actually be pulled off. Sal says ICIRR says undocumented families need to make sure they know their legal rights and to also have an emergency plan in case they are arrested.
Who's going to watch over the property? Who's going to pay the bills?
If these are illegal immigrant criminals, then those are concerns. And you should have a plan. Because Tom Homan, he's coming for you. I mean, this is some very basic stuff. But you know what? If you're trying to protect these folks, illegal immigrant criminals, shame on you.
How do we address medical issues that may come up? All of these things need to be thought through and planned out.
Some immigration attorneys here in the Chicago area say they already have experience dealing with Trump's first term in office. But they say this time they believe it's going to be more challenging.
I do believe it would be worse, but at the same time,
here's why it is going to be worse. Because close to 12 million people are in the country illegally right now? 12 million people? So just based on sheer numbers alone, of course it's going to be worse. And that's because of the last 4 years of the Biden administration. Period. Full stop. So yeah, of course it's going to be worse. And that's because after record 45-year lows of illegals coming into the country, we would, just opened up the border and shot to the moon. Well, this is the pushback on that. This is we need to kind of get things going back in the right direction. So here's what we're doing. We're going after the criminals first. To me, this is totally reasonable. And if you don't think so, check your mental stability.
I also believe that advocates, immigration attorneys, and just the community in general is going to be more prepared.
In Streeterville, Christian Farr, NBC 5 News.
Whatever, right? All right. So here's my last point. Here's my parting shot. While the Biden administration has focused its deportation efforts on those deemed public safety threats, and in the last year, 271,000. So even Biden's administration has deported 271,000, while simultaneously letting in how many millions? The Trump administration would likely pursue deportation actions against any undocumented individual in the U.S., with Homan previously stating that no one would be off the table in connection with those efforts. But based on pure numbers, based on just, logistics, National Guard, personnel, you're not going to deport 8 million people in year one. You're maybe going to deport, 400,000? Maybe. You did 271 last year, and that was really going for it. And so you're going to focus on the criminals. Do you do 350? Do you do 400? So, are you maybe deporting 1.5 million over 4 years? I don't know. It'll be interesting to see kind of what these numbers actually come out to. But I believe that what you've got right now is just a bunch of virtue signaling because people want to make Trump out to be the bad guy for deporting criminals let into the country under the Biden administration. Whew, yeah. Stay tuned. This is going to be interesting. January 21st can't come soon enough, can it? Thanks for being here. I'll catch up with you in the next one. Bye for now.